Hello, my name is Shiraz and welcome to my English and Maths channel. Today we're going to have a look at this fantastic poem, Blessing by Imtiaz Dharkar. But before we have a look at the poem, I would like you to have a look at these pictures. So, think about what is happening in these pictures. Let's have a look at the first one. So you can see a girl and she has cracked skin. So why do you think she has cracks in her skin? Okay, think about it, and I will discuss that in the poem. And in the second picture, we have little children, and they're very, very skinny, and you can see their bones. So think about why they are so skinny. And the next picture, there is a boy drinking water. Think about if he has to pay for this water or if it's free. And the same goes in this picture here. So, think about why all these people have gathered here to collect some water, and how these children feel while they play in the water. Okay, so just have a think about these. So let's move on to the actual poem now. Okay, on the right side here you have some yes, you have some poetic devices and some terms. If you're not comfortable, if you're not very much familiar with all these terms, please have a look. We will also try to explain them in the poem, but it would be worth reading about them beforehand. Okay, so blessing, the word blessing, whenever you hear this word, so you start thinking about religion, about God, and the things, the holy things that we have in this world. Okay, so from the very outset, the poet very successfully takes us into that kind of religious atmosphere. Okay. The skin cracks like a pod. So first of all, this word here, like. So whenever you see this word like, there is a simile here. So the skin cracks like a pod. You can see the pod here, the pea pod. The way it cracks, you can hear the sound when you open the sea pod. So in the same way, the skin cracks. Now think about why skin cracks. If you go back to this picture here, so maybe there's not enough moisture in her skin, that's why the skin is cracking. And when there's not enough moisture, that means there's not enough water. Okay, so the skin cracks, and because of that, the lack of water, the skin cracks, and you can even hear the sound in this word here, cracks. So this is a very beautiful example of onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia is when the word gives the sound that it makes. Okay, so cracks, the skin cracks like a pod. There never is enough water. Okay, and this is because there is never enough water. So we are kind of taken into that place where there is not enough water. So we immediately start thinking about poor countries, for example, maybe Africa or certain parts in Asian countries where there is not enough water. And people who live in other countries where there is enough water, they don't seem to, it's difficult for them to understand, that feeling of having no water, not enough water. And this is the word never. It encompasses past, present, and future. So there never is enough water. Okay, so It's a very, very, dark imagery here. We start thinking about, we start visualizing about a place where there's not enough water, and people have skins which crack like a pod. Okay, so these two lines here, which form a couplet. So this is the theme or the main idea of the whole poem. So this is why these two lines are very much important. Okay, so let's move on to the next stanza here, the four lines stanza. Imagine the drip of it, the small splash, echo in a tin mug, the voice of a kindly God. Okay, so this word here, God, is associated with the word blessing. So once again, the religious imagery here. Imagine the drip of it. Now, the poet is asking us to imagine. Okay, so maybe she's asking the people who have enough water, who live in rich countries, where there is enough water. So she's asking them to imagine. Okay, so it's imperative here. Imagine the drip of it. Okay, so the drip is once again example of onomatopoeia. So when a drop of water drips, it makes a sound like drip. So that is the sound which we can hear in this word drip. So the drip of it is it goes back to water. So she's asking us to imagine the drip of it. Now, when we have a drip, like it's only one drip, it's not for a long time, it's just instant, a very short sound. So that relates to this idea of there never is enough water. Okay, so there's a kind of a repetition of idea here to reinforce the lack of water. The small splash, so small splash. So you can hear the sound is similar in these two words. So the first sound, and it is called alliteration. Okay, and now because this is a soft sound, like hissing sound, s sound, so this kind of alliteration is called sibilance. Okay, so the small splash, so drip again, it's instant, very small, and small splash once again is kind of description of that sound. Splash is also an example of onomatopoeia. Okay, splash, echo in a tin mug. So echo is also example of onomatopoeia. Okay, in a tin mug. So there's an empty tin mug, and imagine a drop of water drips into that tin mug. So you can hear the small splash only for a few seconds or a few moments, and you can also hear the echo of that sound. So very vivid imagery here. And it's a very extreme situation that there is only one drop of water that splashes into that tin mug, and this image is very beautiful. It's a tin mug, so it's not a very one of those expensive mugs. So all these people are poor people. They come from poor countries. The voice of a kindly God. So now that echo, that's a small splash or drip, it is actually the voice of a kindly God. So the God here is water. Okay, so this is a metaphor. Metaphor for water, and once again the religious imagery here is being used. Blessing, and then we have God. Okay, so this God, water is like a figure of God for them. It's a kindly God, of a kindly God. Okay, so this is a metaphor, and it's also a personification. So the voice of a kindly God. So only human beings have voices. So this is an example of personification here. Okay, so now we're going to moving on to the big long stanza here, and this is the most important stanza in this poem, because it will narrate the main event of in this poem. Sometimes, so now what happens is, sometimes it doesn't happen very often. Sometimes the sudden rush of fortune. So there's a sudden rush of fortune. So sudden, instantly we have this idea of sudden, something happening really, really quickly, like, winning winning the lottery, or maybe a jackpot. This fortune, the idea of fortune. So there's something, they become fortunate suddenly, and what happens is the municipal pipe bursts. So there's a municipal pipe here, maybe in a street or somewhere, which is, public pipe and is free. So it bursts. So that is the main event in this whole poem, and that is like a jackpot, that it bursts. Now the word burst is also an example of onomatopoeia, and it's a very strong sound. Now try to contrast this sound with the sound of drip. So there's a direct contrast between this brief and sudden sound, and this loud and violent and very strong, much stronger sound. Okay, so the municipal pipe bursts, and what happens? Silver crashes to the ground. Now silver is a metal, isn't it? And it's an expensive metal. So here silver is a metaphor for water. Now remember, water is very precious for them, and it has a godly figure for them, and it is also very expensive. This idea of fortune and silver. So the whole poem is full of these beautiful images, which portray the whole scenario. So crashes, and there's so many examples of onomatopoeia as well. So it's like, the poetess is trying her best to take us, physically take us into that place where we can visualize and we can hear all these sounds. It's a very beautiful poem, I must say. Okay, so the silver here is water, crashes, and it crashes to the ground. Crashes, once again, example of onomatopoeia. So there's so much water, the sound crash and burst. These are strong and violent, very loud sounds, and compare them to, echo and splash and drip here. And the floor has found a roar of tongues. Okay, so the flow is the flow of water, and what has it done? It has found a roar of tongues. So this roar, another example of onomatopoeia. So there are a lot of people, they are shouting, and they are, they are very loud, and there's kind of the sense of alarm and panic, a roar of tongues. So a lot of people are talking about this incident now, that municipal pipe has burst. Okay, and this image of roar of tongues, it can also, it can also tell us about, those thirsty people. So the tongues might be very thirsty because of the lack of water. Okay, from the huts are congregation. From the huts. So these are poor people. Once again, this image of huts, showing that they are not very rich people. So water is not the only thing that they are lacking. It's a accommodation as well. They don't have proper houses. A congregation. So there is a congregation. There are a lot of people. They have gathered because the municipal pipe has burst. So this word congregation it also has a religious connotation. Okay, so it has become a religious gathering because the this whole incident is kind of it's a blessing for them, and it's this religious atmosphere. Every man, woman, child. So there's a list here: man, woman, child, but there are no commas. Okay, so this lack of commas suggests that there's this rush of people. They are going so fast that there's not enough time for commas. Okay, so every man, woman, child, for streets around, butts in with pots, brass, copper, aluminium, plastic buckets, frantic hands. Okay, so from the corner of every street, men, women, and children, they just come in, butts in, they interrupt. So this can have two meanings, So whatever they were doing, they just interrupt, they stop doing it, okay? Or, this incident has kind of made them stop doing what they were doing. So, they just rush towards this municipal pipe. And what do they take with them? With pots. They take pots, and the pots are brass, copper, aluminium, plastic buckets. So they're, once again, they're not religious people. I'm sorry, they are not very rich people. And that is why they don't have, expensive pots. And they are just rushing towards municipal pipe as if it's like a religious ritual for them to kind of worship their God. Frantic hands, and they are so frantic. They are like crazy. It is an atmosphere of panic, and people are just rushing towards this pipe, and they just want to collect as much water as they can. So this word frantic here also shows poverty and hardship, that they are so poor that when they see an opportunity to get free water, they just, frantically they just run towards it. Okay? Right. And naked children. So what about naked children? So this is a very powerful image. Naked children, they don't have enough clothes. So you see, water is they don't have enough water, and then they live in huts, and they don't have expensive pots. Okay, and then there are naked children. They don't have enough clothes either. So there's so many things that they are lacking. So the whole picture is really sad, I must say. And naked children screaming in the liquid sun. Okay, so these children are screaming in the liquid sun. So they are playing, they don't have any worries. So they see this, opportunity to play in the water, So, so there's a little bit of, positive picture here, and I think that is the only thing that this poem has to offer. So this image of liquid sun, it can have different meanings. So they are screaming in the water, they are playing in the water. So liquid sun is a metaphor for water, okay? And they are rejoicing in that water, they are happy, and because they are in the water, so in the water they can see the reflection of the sun as well. So the sun has kind of become liquid, so they are happy. They are screaming, they are shouting, and their highlights polished to perfection. So their highlights, their body parts, their main parts of bodies are polished. Because they are having a bath, so maybe their bodies were not very clean before, and maybe they are not, there's not enough water, so maybe they are not washing up regularly because there's not enough water. So they find this opportunity to play and also have a bath, and their body parts become really polished to perfection, so they become really clean. Flashing light. So this is the flashing light of the sun as the blessing sings. So this blessing is a metaphor for God and water. So, and it is also an example of personification, because blessing cannot sing. So here the blessing sings. So this water is a true blessing for them over their small bones. So while they are having a bath in that free water, that water is singing over their small bones. So once again, this, the poem finishes at on a very dark image here, small bones. So these children, they lack proper nourishment as well, because they don't have enough food. Okay. So there are so many different things which they don't have. So they don't have water, money, wealth, clothes, food, pots, houses. There's so many things that they don't have. So Imtiaz Dharkar has beautifully portrayed this scene here, and I think she's probably trying to show it to the people who have all these blessings. They have all these facilities, and it is difficult for them to visualize people who don't have them. So using very strong imagery and a lot of metaphors and simile, personification, and most importantly onomatopoeia to to make us hear those sounds. So it is a very beautiful poem. I think you might wish to write about the imagery which she has used. You're more than welcome to ask me any questions that you might have about this poem. I might have missed certain things because there is so much in this poem to talk about. So, okay, great. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Take care. Bye bye.